Okay, Detroit. So I've only got two teams left, Detroit and St. Louis, and then I can get into teams that made the playoffs and missed the second round by losing in the first. The Wings are the Wings are an interesting case. They've got the number 6 pick as a result of the draft lottery. They dropped one spot. Um, Bad luck for a team that really honestly needs one of those top 4 guys. They really need that. They need somebody on an entry level contract that they can turn to. Zetterberg at 6.08 million for 3 more years. Relatively good cap hit. He had a very good season. Nielsen's $5.25 million contract for 4 more years. That's not a good use of your money. Nyquist 4.75 million. He's a UFA next summer. That's part of the reason why Nelson's 5.25 million is a problem, because they got to start giving guys raises and they don't have the room for it. Abdelkader 4.25 million for 5 more years. Five. Darren Helm 3.85 million for 3 more years. Glendening 1.8 million for 3 more years. And now we get into the young guys who are impressive and have to get paid. Athanasiou, restricted free agent, arbitration rights, and he had issues dealing with Ken Holland last summer and getting a deal done, and now we're right back there again. Dylan Larkin and Anthony Mantha, both due for raises as restricted free agents. They're going to eat into the cap space this team has for next year, which we'll get into, and I'm telling you, it's not for the faint of heart if you're a Detroit fan. Witkowski, $750K next year, and then he becomes a UFA. David Booth, UFA, he's not coming back. Tyler Bertuzzi and Martin Ferk are both restricted free agents, Ferk with arbitration rights. That's 5 young forwards that need to get dealt with. 5 young forwards who I would think are probably going to make a minimum $1 million a year. And in the cases of both Larkin and Mantha, it's going to be a lot more than that. And Athanasiou's may very well be a lot more than that too. And that's just up front. The blue line, Green's leaving. So you got to replace Green. You know, that offensive leader on the blue line. It's not Danny DeKaiser. $5 million for 4 more years. Kronwall, $4.75 million for 1 more year. He's 37 years of age. Odds are he retires at the end of next season. Erickson, $4.25 million for 2 more years. Trevor Daley, $3.166 million for 2 more years. And I always thought the Daley signing was odd because it was clear that Detroit was going into a rebuild mode. And I wasn't a huge fan of Daley instead of one of the young guys being in there. But anyways, Ouellette, 1 more year at 1.25 million, and then he's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. And Nick Jensen, 812K for 1 more year, and then he is an unrestricted free agent. In net, there's an issue. Jimmy Howard, $5.291 million for 1 more year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. Carosa, an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Of course, they traded off Peter Mrazek. They traded off Tomas Tatar because they needed the cap space. And now they've got $23 million in cap space for next year. And essentially, one goalie. And I'm not sure how they're going to fix this. And that $23 million in cap is going to evaporate quickly as they fill this roster. Prospects, I isolated Cholowski, Rasmussen. Big center. I think he gets gradually worked into the lineup. Svechnikov, depending who you talk to, either he's an exciting young forward or he is very streaky and leaves something to be desired in the drive department. Hronik, haven't heard a whole lot on him this year. Is he going to come up and play for them next year? Matt Pumple is a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. With the amount of guys that they may be moving out, does Pumple get a shot because he's only 25 and some of these guys are older than that? And Sulak. Libor Sulak is a guy that I found in their depth chart that we haven't heard a lot about outside of Detroit circles, but Detroit's kind of counting on him to come in potentially next year and be an offensive presence on that blue line. It is a tall task that Ken Holland is being given right now to take this team that has been now out of the playoffs for 2 years running and get them back into it in year 3. He has got 2 first-round picks. He's got one from Vegas. That's for Tomas Tatar. It seems like a high price to pay, and yet if you look at Vegas, they're 6 wins into the playoffs, 10 wins away from a cup. Second round, he's got 2. one of them was Ottawa's. He's got 3 third-rounders. One was Phillies and one was Pittsburgh's. So very, very astute moves by Ken Holland that probably saved his job. They now have 7 picks in the first 3 rounds in what's supposed to be a deep draft. And if he plays this right, if that number 6 pick is a blue liner, if Boquist slips down to 6 and he picks up Boquist, or if he picks up one of these talented blue liners, and if they can come in and play right away, it can help right away. Because the blue line is where they need some help. And at the front line of things, again, there's some contracts we can debate about whether or not they're smart ones. Abdelkader sticks out like a sore thumb. But there are a few others, like Nilsson's, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Nyquist since he's going into a contract year. And he may very well want to raise on that $4.75 million. And I'm not sure how much that would be or for how long. It's probably time to start looking at completely revamping the roster, just due to age. It's all about youth and speed in the NHL right now. You got to make room for guys like Larkin and Mantha, and hopefully Rasmussen as well, and Svechnikov comes around. And it's going to be making some hard decisions. And Ken Holland hasn't really had to make these hard decisions. He has always been bringing in veterans, and the style that he used to build a team in the mid-late 90s that made a winner in Detroit, he may very well still be employing that sort of mentality, and it doesn't work in this NHL where it's youth. So he's had to adjust on the fly. In a way, I'm glad that Detroit gave Ken Holland an extension because it gives a chance for this guy to show that he can work through a rebuild. He has never really had to do that in Detroit because he's built a team that was rebuild-proof. Every time you turn around, there was another legend coming into Detroit, either via free agency or via trade. And they seem to win almost every trade. And then, oh, look at their prospect pool. They'd always have some late-round steal coming in. Those days seem to be almost over, or are they? Bertuzzi, at the time that he was drafted, a lot of people thought that was going off the board. Tyler Bertuzzi wasn't worth, I believe it was a second-round pick. And he's actually turned out to be a pretty solid forward, and he's got better hands than I think any of us thought he would coming into the league. So there's something to be said for Ken Holland's ability to identify prospects who are pretty darn good, and he'll get at least a couple more years to show that he can turn the ship around. But that cap space is going to disappear quickly, and it's what they do with it, what they do with their goaltending, and what they do with the blue line that's going to decide what Detroit is going forward and whether or not this is going to be a quick back into the playoff situation next year, or if this is just the start of a long, dark rebuild that could take 3 or 4 more years. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How long do you think it's going to take for Detroit to bounce back and get back in the playoffs? And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.